coming up on Man Enough.
Every time I write a script, it's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to be a fun first act. I'm going to lose confidence in the middle of the second act. This anxiety, this lack of confidence, this, angst is going to be there. Just get ready for it. Say hello to it. Here it is. Get past it.
Do you experience that also, that same lack of confidence sometimes as a husband?
Yeah, there's definitely times you're like, oh, am I too impatient? What are my faults? Am I trying to blame on my wife? You have to constantly keep looking at yourself in a way that you're not blaming the other person.
Being man enough, what does that mean?
It's really manly to mess up, admit you're wrong, and then grow.
I couldn't accept that I was evil. So maybe I'm broken, but those broken things could be corrected.
Intimacy between a father and a son is me just wanting to put my head in your lap.
I love you, son.
You haven't called me benevolent sexist, but my experience is women are better.
Even if it's a positive, it's still not equality.
I don't blame men for that. I just blame the system.
This
Is
Man enough.
Hello and welcome to Man Enough. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello, Big Bottle.
Such a dork.
I know, I'm just
do we
gonna.
have a name for her yet, or she just is anonymous?
What is this water?
It's aggressive.
It's aggressive.
It's just there to piss Jamie off.
Just because once you told me I couldn't have my oversized water bottle.
Yeah.
I just feel
You're
You're
have
like
to
deep
have it.
in your
more.
man enough right now. Like there's something to unpack here. The fact that how you need something really big on the table.
Oh, that's interesting. I actually hadn't thought of it
Big
that
bottle
way.
energy.
In fact,
Got it.
big bottle energy. No, I just want to encourage people to hydrate.
That's great.
I don't think
a lot of
men. I don't
ways
think
to do
men
that.
drink enough water.
There's a lot of ways
Do
to do
men
that
drink as
besides
much water
having-
as women?
I no,
Someone
absolutely
Google
not.
that.
There's
I
probably
don't
there's
think
no
so.
way.
Probably
There's
not.
no way that
Probably not.
happens. We don't even
Yeah.
go to the doctor.
Yeah.
We have so much to talk about today, and I am very excited personally.
You are.
As a filmmaker, to have somebody with this incredible resume who's made some of my favorite comedy movies of all time on the show with us today. Director, author, the incredible Mr. Paul Feig on the show today.
It's me. Hello. How are you? It's so nice to see you all, to see that giant water bottle. My God.
Yes.
What's
that's-
happening there?
Is it?
Yeah. She's going to get her own
all right,
mic.
All right, I'm putting it down. I'm putting it down.
While you put it down, I'm going to introduce
Is there someone in there?
There might be, yeah.
our incredible guest. Paul is an iconic, award-winning creator, filmmaker, writer, producer, and author known for creating the beloved and critically acclaimed series Freaks and Geeks and a leading of influential projects like a small indie film called Bridesmaids.
Just a small
Not
one.
just my favorite movie
One
of all
of the
time.
greatest comedies of all time. One of the greatest comedies of all time.
Truly. The Office, Ghostbusters, and most recently, The School of Good and Evil on Netflix. And during the pandemic, you were also kind of a cocktail enthusiast, and you've just released a new book called Cocktail Time. Welcome, Paul, to Man Enough.
Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
so much. It's so good to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a real thrill. I love you guys.
We have a lot of guests that come on, and everybody's amazing and well worth all of our time. Every now and again, we get someone like yourself who has had such impact to a large group of people, and moved their hearts in one way or another, and made us all laugh and made us think. So it's great to have you here and to share this space and to talk about something a bit more elevated than what we oftentimes get to talk about. So. Thank you.
Oh, well, that's so very kind. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you've also elevated the dress code of the podcast. You're the first person to wear a tie.
I wore this also, and it's not even that dressy, just because I knew he was going to be dressed up. I just
Oh my
wanted to feel
God.
like I could meet him at a dinner party and not be embarrassed.
In the meantime,
Well, now I feel like we should wear
I felt
ties
too casual
in your
because I don't
honor.
have my jacket on. So.
Oh my God, it's great. No,
Well,
you're
it's-
best
yeah,
dressed.
where's my jacket? Sorry.
can you just share one quick thing with us before we get heavy and deep? You started your career, your amazing career, at a very prestigious place in a very prestigious role as being a tour guide for Universal Studios, correct? That's where it all began.
Yes, correct. Yes.
I love that.
That's where it all started. Yeah, I was living right outside Detroit in Michigan and wanted to get into showbiz. And I got a copy of Variety magazine, and they had a listing of all the studios. So I called all the studios to see if they needed actors, and of course they didn't. But Universal Studios, the last one I called, they said they needed tour guides. So I did my last exam, drove all the way there, like had to be there like 24 hours from Michigan, and got into the training program. Then I was a tour guide for the summer of '81.
Wow.
81. So you may
Wow.
have driven me around and just introduced me to the Jaws that scared my life.
Oh yeah, well I fell in Jaws Lake. That's my claim
You
to fame.
fell in Jaws Lake?
Yes, because if you've been on the tour, you know how you're coming down and that's
Yeah.
the dot tips when like the shark's coming by, and so I was doing the tour guide thing, and a woman was wearing a clog, and when it tipped, her clog fell in the water, and so the shark came and did all this thing, and we get out, and she goes like, "My clog's in the water," so I went back out on the dock to get it. And then the dock reset, and I fell off into the water and almost got run over by Jaws as it was backing up into position. So I almost got killed by Jaws' tail.
Oh God!
So,
Close
there you
call.
go.
Wow.
I'm glad
What a
you
great
made
story.
it.
Thank you. It could have all been over. There would be no Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
I think for all filmmakers now, we're going to tell them, interns go and work at Universal Studios as a tour
Yeah.
guide. Maybe they can one day be like you.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. It was fun. I mean, that was the first time I was ever around showbiz, being in a studio and being around sound stages and productions. It was really cool.
Oh, sweet.
Not too long ago, I actually went and took my kids on the tour. And I hadn't been on the tour probably in 15, maybe 20 years since I first got into the business, probably 20 years ago. And I was filled with so much nostalgia. I remember being a kid and going, and now I'll never think about that tour part again without seeing you fall into the water. But I remember just the feeling of what that was like, and just the being in awe that movies could be made. And then here we are now, like a small part of it in some way. I imagine for you, that's got to be really, really sweet.
Yeah.
To go from being a tour guide to just making some of the funniest movies of all time.
Well, the craziest thing was that, I like a few years ago, I got a first look deal at Universal Studios. So like the studio where I was just like this kid from Michigan, all of a sudden, like I'm making movies for them and you're on the tour and they have a Bridesmaids thing up. It blows my mind. I mean, I never get jaded about this business because you just can't believe you're in it. We're so lucky.
So we ask every guest the same question to start. Paul, when was the last time that you didn't feel enough?
Interesting. I like that question. Every day of my career, I would dare say, because I think we all have, to some extent, imposter syndrome. And I feel that every time, especially when I'm going into a new project, you just kind of like you can't imagine that it's going to exist, and you can't imagine yourself doing it, even though you have a clear vision for it. Like I always wake up in the middle of the night and go like, how am I going to shoot this? How is this going to actually happen? How's it going to be real? It doesn't seem real. It's why, like, whenever I'm making a movie and there's, we have like on-set photographers, I always kind of like, it doesn't make sense to me, because to me, I'm like, oh, why do they want to take pictures of this? Because I don't know if this is going to work or not. And only when the movie's finished and you look at those photos, you're like, oh, wow, cool. That actually was like, that's capturing a moment that now, is something that people know, and like if it's a scene that people really like, like there's a photographer when we're shooting the dress shop scene in Bridesmaids, now you're like, oh, that's cool that we have that. But you just kind of don't know while you're doing it if it is going to work. You hope it does, and you put everything in place for it. But I don't know. I never have that overwhelming confidence of this is going to be great, and this is, going to live for a long time.
Yeah.
So do you doubt yourself before you go in? Sorry, guys, I'm taking this over. Personal therapy.
Do it.
Do you doubt yourself before you go make a movie? Does the pressure ever get to you? Do you wonder if you can actually pull it off?
It's more of that, really. It's really more of that, because, everything you do when you're shooting and it's different from TV show in a lot of ways, because like a TV show, you kind of have your sets, and you know your characters, and it's an ongoing thing. With a movie, everything is new. Every day is new. A lot of directors will say, I think Robert Zemeckis had said, all you get to set with a vision, and all you do is compromise that vision all day long. And I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, nobody knows what's in your head. And so that's the thing you got to learn as you make movies is like, I've got something that I want so specifically in my head, but then when other people start getting involved and putting their input in, everybody from the cinematographer to the actors to the prop people, all that stuff, then it becomes other people's vision too. And some people have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that because I just think it ups my vision, or it just makes it different. Like my vision was going to be one thing, but what we got was really cool, and it had a lot of other people's visions in it. And so it became a living, breathing thing.
Yeah. And I was at a screening for a film, the Navalny documentary, and the director said, any film getting made is a miracle. And I know that many of your films feel like miracles to me personally, but also I know we're very hard to make for you as a director. I really see Bridesmaids as being this turning point in Hollywood, and also obviously because of the influence of Hollywood, our entire culture of, women being taken seriously, as leads, and also movies about women and about female stories being seen as having like a mainstream appeal, right? So that it's not just a chick flick. Like we don't say, like it's kind of the whole chick flick myth, which was just kind of assumed to be true, that men don't care about women's stories, just was proven wrong by how successful Bridesmaids really was. And so, but a lot of people don't realize how hard it was for you to make that film. And so I'm wondering if you can speak to that. And just, again, on a personal level, I think it's really wonderful as as a viewer when I see a female director really harness and illustrate the female experience and make me feel seen. I think that there's something really even more magical in some respects when a man and a male director is able to do that. And again, I'm giving you like 5 questions in one because I have so many things I want to ask you. But it's also in the way that you create male characters supportive of female leads and their experience. So yeah, how hard was it to make Bridesmaids, and why do you think that, how have you seen it sort of shift the industry in terms of other films that you've made about women's stories?
A lot of pressure was put on the movie. We were able to get it made because, Judd had made a deal with Kristen Wiig because they had done, Knocked Up and all that. So, and it wasn't an expensive movie, but at the same time, it was a big risk for them. And the industry was very much about going, we have to wait and see if this movie starring women will work before we can look at other projects like this, which just really shows you how screwed up Hollywood is. Because we get, when the Hangover came out, it wasn't like, oh, let's wait and see if these 3 guys can carry a movie. So so there is that. But I'm a guy. I'm very in tune with women's stories, and I grew up. I was an only child, very close with my mom. All my friends were girls, so I feel very in tune with that. But I'm still a guy in the sense of, I don't feel like I've got this ultra knowledge. What I am able to do beyond kind of, being a little more in touch with those stories is to work with amazing women who then I get to vet everything and go like, is this feel real? Does this, would you respond this way? No. What would you do? It has to be, to get great 3-dimensional male and female characters, you need both sexes weighing in on it so that each side can call the other side when you're going into stereotype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Was there ever anything that, like you put in the script or you were going to put into a scene that then one of the women that you worked with was like, a woman would never say this?
Oh, yeah. No, you like pitch a joke in the moment and they're like, I don't know if I would say that. And it's like, oh, cool. Well, what version of that would you say? We would do this. And so that's how it would always work out. And you go, oh, that's way funnier, Yeah. And so that's why you need that give and take.
But do you remember like a specific example of something that you thought women said or women did and someone was like, absolutely not. Or not, and you can't pull a...
Oh, gosh.
It's been too long.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any specifics. It's really just...
Rarely.
It's sometimes it's just wordings of things, or a term, or so we wouldn't use that term, we'd use this term, and especially when you get into kind of R-rated comedy. Not that I'm pitching horrible things to say. But, there's just a way that a woman would say something, a joke, that a guy wouldn't, and so it's just a constant kind of pitching, and like even just pitching a joke, and then they do the joke, but they've already changed it to their wording, and sometimes it's not even a male-female thing. Sometimes it's just that's the way a person's mouth works. That's why I always have such a hard time with writers who say it exactly this way. When I was a TV director, that's all would happen. Like you'd have a joke and the actor would have it, and then the showrunner would be like, he's got to say it like this. And you're like, but his mouth doesn't work that way. Right. I had that happen when I worked with Tracy Morgan on 30 Rock. And, the showrunner had a joke he wanted very specific wording for. Tracy's a very individual performer who has a funny way that he does it and made it his own. And this showrunner wanted it said this way, and it finally was just like, it's not going to happen. Or you go in and tell Tracy Morgan to say it exactly the way that you would say it, because I'm not going to do it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the hard things about TV. I've experienced that as an actor, where I've had to say things exactly as written. On the show I was on for 5 years, and I there were times when I just couldn't say the words.
Yeah,
and it made me feel stupid, or like I was like, wait. Am I bad at speaking? But it had to be said this way. And then I'd find myself, the only way that I could say it was by slowing down so much that the words came out correctly, but then it killed whatever I was trying to say.
Yeah, totally.
But then, of course, you still had to say it that way. Yeah.
Well, that's something I always keep on my desk. I always have on my desk a bust of Shakespeare to remind myself and every writer I work with that we're not Shakespeare. We can change these words. This is not sacred text. Because again, everybody's mouth works differently. We talk differently.
You seem to you've talked about something to the effect that it's you think young boys should have friends that are girls, and also that I guess why do you think oftentimes that is not the case? Why boys have trouble opening up or having girls as friends? What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah.
And how and specifically why you think it's beneficial to young boys to be engaged and have deep relationships with women, young girls as friends?
The portrayals of women they've been seeing for the past 30 years, 40 years has been, it's a girl to be in love with. It's a mom who's mean and gets in your way and doesn't let you go out with your friends. It's a girlfriend who's a shrew. It's a wife who's, telling the hero, you got to stay home with the family. You can't go and save the world. And so it just creates this
A stepmother.
Yeah, this vision of like, oh, well, women are a drag, and only guys kind of get this. And so that creates this schism that I think a lot of young guys can't kind of see past, and so the minute you're friends with girls and close with, women in your life, that's not true, but a lot of guys just kind of hang with the guys. They watch this male dominated stuff. Liz, like you were saying, the term chick flick, which is the worst, I hate that term because all it is an excuse for guys not to see a movie that has women in it, So it just, they need to get past that and see three-dimensional relationships between men and women, and see girls and women as three-dimensional characters that are flawed and funny and confident and not confident, just like they are. They need to see versions of themselves that are women.
I think that has to start with boys being taught to accept the parts of themselves that look like women, right? So long as we believe the worst thing we could ever be called as young boys is a girl, we will never embrace the parts of ourselves and the traits that girls and women exemplify. But we got to remember that we have those same parts, right?
They're also traits
compassion,
of boys.
empathy, sensitivity are not exclusive to women. They're not gender specific. They're biological. We all have them. But I love that. And I think once we can start to heal that and help young boys love those parts of themselves, they'll start to not identify with female movies and chick flicks and those types of things.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah, and I, coming back to how great your films are. I'm just every question is gonna start there. I think it's not just about the female characters that you, right, are portraying. So you're giving me as a woman, or you're giving young girls, you know, a way into seeing themselves as the main character of the story in their complicated, nuanced way. I think that your male characters can be really healing to watch as a woman, right? To be able to see a man in a supportive role where supportive is not something negative or something feminine. It actually makes you thrive as a man. So I'm curious, again, is that thought out, or is it just kind of the way that you create those characters, or is there something behind it in the way that you do it?
The funny thing is I really get condemned a lot by, the people that don't like my movies, of misandry or misandry or whatever it is. Like they were so up in arms that Chris Hemsworth was a dumb character in Ghostbusters, but it's like, well, it was just a reaction to how many dumb characters I've seen women have to play as the receptionist. So it was just kind of having fun with that. But honestly, it grew out of, that wasn't even scripted like that. It was scripted. He was just supposed to be this kind of slacker guy who just didn't want to be there. But when Chris came in, he just started, all his jokes were kind of dumb guy jokes that he was ad-libbing. And it was just so funny to us that we just kind of went with it and had a blast and thought nothing of it. And I know that there was some guys particularly, who were just looking to hate anything to do with my Ghostbusters, but they really jumped on that and got really mad about it. And I just never saw it that way. And they had moments of going like, wow, did I do something bad with this character? It was like, no, like, first of all, it's comedy, so everybody lighten the hell up, but at the same time, why can't we have fun with these tropes and these stereotypes that women have had to deal with for all these years? So I think maybe sometimes I go too far and go like, well, let's burn the other side, because it would just be, it's a fun kind of reaction, because that's all my movies are. At the end of the day, most of my movies are just reactions to a genre, taking a genre, flipping the tropes, and then having fun with it.
Right.
So
are we that sensitive?
Yeah.
Are we that sensitive as men that we see one character?
Well, some are very sensitive.
Like, I just don't understand how we could see that one character played by Thor, right? The god, and he's clearly making fun of himself, and yet we're upset about that?
Right.
But to me, it proves our point. I think flipping things is so brilliant, and it's such a creative way to make a point, because exactly, there's nothing political about it. You're just reversing the role that we're used to seeing women do, and then seeing what happens when a man does it, and the anger and people being upset. I think, to your point, just proves the point that we need different characters for women, and that women were stuck in that genre forever, and that it has consequences. This was one character, but for women, that was the only available character. I mean, sometimes I can't even pinpoint a single actress, and none of them come to mind, but where now they do films that are really great, and I'll see a film that they made in like 2007, like not that long ago, and they're kind of playing this dumb kind of, again, not overtly stupid, like that's not even the point. Often in some, characters are literally bimbos, right? And that is the point. But even female characters just kind of being oblivious, right? And again, just being character development for the guy was really the norm. And sometimes, I'll see an old thing, I'm like, man, I guess she had to do that. She had to take that role. And it makes me kind of sad.
Well, I had that happen with when I saw it. Look, and I love this movie. School of Rock is such a great movie. But, I love Sarah Silverman. I think she's such a funny, and she's just mean in that movie. She's not funny. She's just this mean girlfriend. And I know Sarah, and I've worked with Sarah, and I was just like, man, that just made me so sad. Or Rachel, I think Rachel Harris, also in The Hangover, is just this shrew of a fiance, and Rachel's hilarious, and you're kind of like, oh, don't make them be that. I don't know. That's at least my take on it. Just because I know how funny they are in real life. I want them to be able to go toe to toe.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have this belief that emasculation is a myth. That as men, we cannot be emasculated. That our masculinity cannot be taken away unless it is purely a performance. There isn't a verb for that in feminism. And I couldn't defeminize you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on emasculation, because you tend to have male characters in your movies that also set up and empower the women. And if you get any shit for that, just kind of what your thoughts are.
Well, I really agree with what you say. And I think that's a really great point to make because, feeling emasculated is on the male. It's just something you feel.
Yeah.
It's not, unless somebody cuts your nuts off, like physically cuts your balls off, like you can only have an issue with something, and go like, oh my God, you made me look so bad,
I looked weak in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I probably had that in moments in my relationship case, like, you made me, you kneecap me or whatever. But it's like, but that's still, that's on me again, because I 100% agree with what you're saying, and it's just that's guys have to kind of lighten up and not take everything like an assault on who they are as a man. I just find that it's very kind of weak, but it's also rewarded sometimes,
Yeah. Or again, it's like you made me feel this way, right? And it's probably a woman, as opposed to like society makes me feel this way, right? Like the fact that I feel shamed and that there's something wrong with me or broken with me is not her fault. It's like this is our culture and we're all hurt by it, right?
Right.
So I'm with you, right? It's bringing it back to like you feel that way, and feeling emasculated is like, let's acknowledge it. Like that's a hard.
It's feeling insecure. Really, is really what it is.
Yes.
It's feeling insecure,
and it's weaponized against men.
But men aren't allowed to feel insecure. So if we're not allowed to feel insecure, then therefore we must be emasculated.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it must be a woman's fault, right?
So this is leading me to a question I would love to ask you. It has nothing to do with work or film or our perspective through those eyes in our workplace. A lot of people that have listened to our podcast have heard, and I specifically am speaking for or on behalf of men, have heard us share some things that we've struggled with and what we've done to try to overcome them. We've heard things like myself going back to being molested from the age of 7 to 17, how that had effect on me, and then in my adulthood. And being able to say that out loud and have it speak to maybe some other men that didn't have the courage to say so. I won't point any particular person on the podcast or guest, but we've talked about porn, how that's affected us in different ways. All kinds of...
He's talking about me.
Okay, I didn't want to single you out. But there's been
one of the two
I knew it.
Different things that men oftentimes that we pack, we don't allow ourselves to feel vulnerable so that we can let it go and then learn from it and then be better. Is there something that's appropriate that you feel safe sharing in your life, just as a man walking through the world, that you have had to deal with, that you've overcome, that might speak to us or someone?
Well, that's an interesting question.
And I don't mean like so personal that I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but please.
No. Trust me. No. I mean, it for me, it's something I struggle with daily, and it's what we started talking about at the beginning of the podcast, which is confidence. I really, have giant problems with it, and have from time to time, and kind of running through me. I just know myself so much better now that I know that it's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like, to break it down into something more specific, when I'm writing a script, I always blast into a script with all this confidence in the first act and blah, blah, blah. Then I know I get into the second act and it starts to get weird. I'm starting like, oh boy, is this, bad. And always when I get to the middle of the script, it's like, this is terrible. I got to stop doing it. And then you push through and get to the end. But the only reason I'm able to push through now is I go like, every time I write a script, it's going to do the exact same thing. It's going to be a fun first act. I'm going to lose confidence in the middle of the second act. I'm going to get it back coming, And so if you know yourself well enough to go, it's going to happen. This anxiety, this lack of confidence, this, angst is going to be there. Just get ready for it. Say hello to it. Here it is. Get past it.
Do you experience that also, that same lack of confidence sometimes as a husband, as a friend,
father,
as a father?
Yeah. Well, I don't have kids, so I've avoided that. But no, definitely in relation. Look, I've been married for 28 years, and we have such a great marriage. But yeah, there's definitely times you're like, oh, am I, not as good as I could be, or am I like too impatient, or am I, blaming somebody for something? What of my faults am I trying to blame on my wife or whatever? You have to constantly keep looking at yourself and in a way that you're not blaming the other person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good, because that's where I think that it helps us a lot when we do it in our personal lives, in our marriages. I've had to reflect a lot about how I can be a better husband. I have 4 kids to be a better father. And when I am focused on those things in my personal, then it reflects in my work as well, and other things that I'm a part of, right? But in my circle, I have to be a better man, human. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Can we switch gears a little bit? I'd love to talk about your new book. I've heard that drinks are very gendered. I'm curious.
Interesting.
I would like to learn more about the gendered nature of drinks. Educate me. Take me to bar school.
They can be. Well, again, this forces me to talk sort of in that black and white that we're trying to get away from in movies.
Yeah.
Which is, the equivalent of a chick flick in the drinks world would be like a lady drink, which, it's too sweet, or it's too colorful, or it's got a flower in it, or whatever. Oh, that's a woman's drink. And again, it's dumbly gendered, because I can enjoy a Mai Tai or a pink lady or a pink squirrel or whatever. As a guy, you're in a bar, and like if you want to order like a drink you really like that happens to be sweet and considered to be a lady drink, and suddenly you're like, oh, am I going to get beaten up?
Right.
Is that James Bond's fault?
Nah, no, I don't think so, because I'm a martini guy. So no, I think it's more this kind of toxic masculinity about like you're swigging Jack Daniels, and real men burn their gullets out with hard liquor, and ladies need sweet stuff that's pretty. It's like, no, it's a drink. Like if that tough guy then drinks a Coke, is he any less of a man because it's a sweet drink?
Right.
It's all this bullshit kind of labeling of stuff that just is so tiring.
Yeah.
Because like,
tiring.
really, do we care about that?
Yeah.
That's true. Alcohol commercials are really fascinating when you really think about them. If anything is, maybe because we don't say the words toxic masculinity, but maybe it is. Maybe it's all about the alcohol industry.
I mean, I worked in a bar. I probably told this story before because it's iconic. I was a bartender at like a dive bar, and my boss, was telling me about how to make the drinks, and he was like, "If it's a woman, you put a straw. If it's a man, you don't put a straw." And it was like a very important rule because and then I remember just actually asking why. I think that's the most powerful thing you can just like, why? Like, just explain that one to me. And he was like, because the guy will just throw it out anyways. And they were so cheap. We got paid $4 an hour.
But there's truth in
and
this,
like,
Liz. There's truth in this. And I can tell you that I, somewhere in my life, was programmed to believe that drinking out of a straw was feminine.
Yeah.
To the point where, I'm not even joking, when I was doing this,
You felt emasculated.
drinking out of my straw, every time I do, there's a part of the back of my brain that's like,
Wow.
oh, maybe I shouldn't. That's how deep it is.
You mean to chug it, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And look, there's
interesting.
there's 2 holes here. There's one to chug and one to straw.
Yeah, even smoking cigarettes. Like you smoke a cigarette, like here's the masculine way of smoking a cigarette. You hold it like this. And then this was the feminine way. And like, what?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah,
Who
or even
made that up?
sometimes I've been on dates where like we'll order drinks and then it comes in a normal glass for me, and then it comes in because you don't know what kind of glass is going to come out, and then it comes out in a Cosmo glass for him, and then I feel embarrassed for him, like I'm like, oh God,
He's emasculated.
Yes, and like quick, we got to drink those drinks or anyone finds out, and it is like you'll again being a bartender, you'll see it like when you give a drink to a guy in one of those glasses that it just comes in, there'll be like deep discomfort.
Well, I was going to say, when I was growing up in the 70s, if you dared cross your legs, like a lady, when you you put your leg over your knee and it down versus up where you're man spreading, Yeah, like you would get killed. Like I mean, like in school, people are like, oh my God, look, Feig's sitting like a lady, and it's just like, what? Like my leg's comfortable, and do I have to really sit with my crotch open, and my knee up, like? But that stuff, and like, why do we care about that stuff so much? And again, when again, because I just turned 60, so I've been around a long time. And it was so much. It was such a big deal back then. God forbid anybody thought, you were gay, and my last name was Feig, so you can only imagine what I got called.
Oh my God.
And it just planted all these seeds of like, oh my God, gay is bad and all this. And so I'm so glad that we're, as weird as things are still now, it's so much more enlightened than it was when I was growing up.
Wow.
I say this as my legs have been crossed the whole time.
Yeah.
And I still think about it. When I'm doing an interview or I'm doing press and I'm on TV, I'm more comfortable like this. And I'll catch my reflection in the studio monitors that are up. And I'll think, oh, wait, should I do this? And it's not nearly as comfortable for me.
And then the reverse for women is true too,
it's not,
right?
It hurts my knee.
Like
hurts my
women,
hips.
we have to, one of the the first videos, I was a journalist for a long time, 2 years before doing this podcast. And it was at the height of manspreading, and the MTA had put these kind of ads telling men to stop manspreading in the subway. And so me and my coworker, Nick, who like worked in sales, like I just like dragged him into this video. We went to the subway of New York, both manspreaded, and with a hidden camera to see people's reactions. And obviously when Nick did it, no one cared. And when I did it, oh boy. And even the act of doing it, like sitting there and with my legs open, I was like, it was mortifying. Like my whole entire nervous system was like, this is against everything I'm supposed to do as a lady. So it's so
it's
true,
both ways.
right? Exactly.
You're taught to not take up space. I'm taught to take up space.
Yes.
I wrote about that very thing in Man Enough in my book.
Right.
And I didn't know about it until my wife would constantly complain that I was taking up all the space on the couch. Like she talked about me like I was a puppy that didn't know he was a Rottweiler. I just was like, oh, but I thought I just wanted to be close to her. But in reality, I'm like sitting like this, and then she's confined to just the corner of the couch. And she's like, what are you doing? She's like, can I have some freaking space? And I had no concept that I was taking up all the space. And then it made me think, well, what other places am I taking up space?
Right.
And that's what I think is important about this conversation is that as men, we have to have the conversation so that we can have a light bulb moment and go, oh, wait, I do think about that. Why don't I drink out of straws at bars or with drinks? Or why don't I like to cross my legs? Where is that coming from? And it all kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is we're taught to hate the parts of ourselves that appear feminine. And if we can learn to love those parts of ourselves, then everything changes.
And you're also taught it's emasculating to think about it, to confront it. That's what the right now loves. Oh my God, it's all men are getting so emasculated because they're caring about this stuff. It's like, no, that's bullshit. Like you gotta look at this stuff. But I don't know. It's just this whole. I don't like the term toxic masculinity, but it is rampant out there right now. With a lot of these heroes that these people have. I'm not going to name any names, but I think we know we're talking about in politics. I thought we were through with it, and then when it comes roaring back, you realize it's just this. You're always going to go one step forward, two steps back. And so. We're kind. I feel like are we kind of coming into two steps forward? I don't know, but we've definitely been two steps back for the last number of years.
Yeah. Let me just share a little bit about something that we're doing, and I would love to hear your response, specifically for someone like Justin, and then maybe make it more.
Excuse me. I'm just going to drink this water bottle while you're asking him this question.
This water bottle.
Careful! Don't fall in it. Don't fall in it, Justin.
And then maybe you can answer in a way that's directed to Justin, but also in general to people of how they deal with maybe the question he asked. So we're a studio, Wayfarer Studios. We're doing a bunch of things. One particular project we're doing is a book that's called It Ends With Us, written by Colleen Hoover, partnering with a major studio. And it's a big deal for us, right? Big property. Justin's at the helm directing this. Justin, if you don't know, and I'm sure you do, is already an established director. Has done 2 fantastic movies as well as other things as well, right? He's the head and brains and creative genius of our studio. And
where's this going?
It's going somewhere. Leave me alone for a minute.
Somewhere nice. Come, Justin, accept it.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
exactly. Accept it, right?
It's going into my imposter
and
syndrome.
Yes,
it's about to go into my imposter
started
syndrome.
earlier when we asked you.
There you go.
Yep.
When's the last time we asked you? When's the last time you didn't feel enough? And one of the first things you said was, "Well, we all have this imposter syndrome." Well, Justin too, right? He's brilliant, and he can have it. A lot of us are.
I do.
So now we're about to go into prep and all the stuff for this movie. And he's going in and he's going to do brilliant. And yet there's this person in the back of your mind and the shoulder that's reminding you of how you can fail, how you may not do this right and such and such. What would you say in your experience that maybe this is addressed to that question, but also in general as people, humanity, and as men, as we question ourselves all the time? What would you say to a Justin and the likes that could be useful?
I say, let it happen. It's going to be there. I don't trust anybody who doesn't have it, because it's like super confidence going into anything means you're not open to other people's input. It means you're not open to your own fears, which will inform you what you have to get more either prepared for, or you have to shore up for more, or you just have to be aware of and in tune with what's happening in every phase, in casting, in pre-production, in approving things, and going through the rewrite, all that stuff. And then when you get to set, being in tune with that. My thing I always say is you have to be confident enough to have no confidence, because
I love that so
I
much.
love it. That's you, bro.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, you have to go into it going, I can do this. But then when you get in there, go like, but I don't know if I'm right about all this stuff. So other people, what's your input? What's your, I'm open to what you want to do. Like, I'm not, I hate, like, especially writer directors do this all the time, where it's like, I spent 2-3 years writing this script. You're going to say those lines exactly the way I wrote them, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, yeah, but you're not Shakespeare, So, yeah, let's do it your way. And then if the actor has a way they want to try it, let them try it, and you sort it out in the editing room. Because if you don't shoot it, then you don't have it. And maybe that person was right.
Confident enough to have no confidence. I
love that.
That hits deep, and I resonate so much with that.
We might put that on a
Thank you.
t-shirt.
I like it.
So I have a question. So your resume is incredible. And I say this with a lot of love. And I don't give a fuck about your resume. Right. I mean, I do in the sense of what your art and that. But at the end of the day, you are a human being walking through the world. And I imagine that, I don't know if you have nephews or, people around you that you have influence on, but they don't look at your one sheet, right? And of who you are.
No, definitely not.
It's really the legacy you leave behind is more in how you deal with people. Now, your resume allows you opportunities, right? Your success of how you walk as a white, cis man. How would you say that you use all of that to elevate humanity, to champion women, to offer boys new perspectives so that our society can look different in 10 years and our business that is very male-dominated can look different? So maybe some tangible ways that you use.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just a very hyper aware of it. I mean, it's why I always wanted to do, starting off, women-centric kind of projects, because, growing up watching male stories my entire life, other than older movies, from the 30s and 40s, where there was kind of a real equality between the female characters and the male characters. Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, Bringing Up Baby, and Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant in His Girl Friday, that kind of thing. And then watching, as I was growing up, that change, and the women's roles were so subservient or one-dimensional or just rubes to make the male performers funny. I didn't like that. And yeah, as a white cis man, totally, I definitely have a leg up, or in the business. Didn't want to be part of the problem. I can't change who I am, but if I can then do the projects that can empower the people who aren't in charge, then that's great. And then then that's gone through all my movies, but my diversity was not great in a lot of my movies, and it's only been in my most recent ones when I'm trying to get more diversity on the screen.
Why? Tell me why that is. So they weren't before. I know why they weren't before, because obviously, what was the shift for you to say, okay, now my movies are going to be more diverse? There must have been some sort of awareness or shift.
It was just going like, oh my gosh, look at how white my movies are. It's because you just go, if you're making movies that don't reflect the world around you, then you are failing as a filmmaker. Because I walk down the street wherever I am and go like, look what a diverse, beautiful world it is. And yet, okay, why am I defaulting to, not putting that diversity on the screen? And that's something there is a default setting, because I work with women in film, and we have this whole program Reframe and all that. And it's about trying to get more, people of color and women, everybody behind the camera as well. And what you found is there's just a default setting. We go like, oh, well, let's just hire those people because we know those people, and then you go like, wait, okay, before we hire those people, let's talk to other people and interview other people who we wouldn't normally, we don't know, and see if they can top that person. I'm not saying hire somebody just because of who they are, but if you then create the opportunity for them to show you what they can do and hear their vision, and you're like, that person's awesome. Let's give that person a shot. Then that's what you need. So you got to create the opportunity. To not do it is terrible.
It is. I love that you do that, because what you just said was, obviously you build a community of folk that you've worked with over the years, and you're going to hire them. And of course it makes sense. But if we only do that, then we don't give opportunities to those that we're saying we want to champion and make a change. So it does require taking a pause, and let's look at other things and see how we can incorporate and diversify our projects. And if it comes from the top and people successful like yourself, then it trickles down, and then other people get to watch how a super successful person like yourself is doing it, and then we now can reflect that. So I appreciate it as someone of color, speaking on behalf of my sisters. The fact that you're mindful of that is really, really sweet and special. So thank you.
Oh, well, no, thanks. And, but we also have this company called Powder Keg, which is in our company. It's because I got tired also of is mentoring people. It's like, can you mentor so-and-so? And I like doing it. But what I found is mentoring is like, okay, watch me on the set, come, I'll give you all this advice, and it's over. Okay, good luck. Off you go, and back into the wilds of the industry. So we created Powder Keg to do this. We have this program called Powder Keg Fuse, where basically we get people submit ideas, and then each round we greenlight 5 to 6 short films that we put $10,000 into each, and then let the person make it. So then they get to make it and have a calling card. So it's not just going like, okay, we'll mentor you, tell you what to do. Like then they can succeed or fail on their own. And if they do it and it doesn't work out, we gave you the shot. We create opportunity. But if it does and it works out every single time, these people now have a calling card, and a lot of them are getting jobs in the industry and all that. So it's people in my position have to create opportunity, not just kind of goodwill.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my favorite things about your films is that women are allowed to be women, right? And women are allowed to be human. I think that when we realize how bad it was and how many, like the lack of female-driven stories, I think there was the Wonder Womans and, women superheroes and the, so-called strong female lead. And you've really made us, I know you've
There's
made
no fart jokes in those movies.
There's no fart
Liz,
jokes in those
Let's be honest. This is really where this is going.
No, it is where it's going.
Because before we got on this, before we started the podcast, Liz could not stop talking about fart and poop jokes.
Yeah, I love the fart.
And we kept saying, Liz, can you please save it for the podcast? And she kept going and going and going and going. Little did we know that.
But I think she and I are quite in tune on that. Exactly.
I think poop is political. Okay, women aren't allowed to have bodily functions. Tina Fey writes about it in her book, right? Being at SNL and making it was her or Amy making a fart joke, and being told by one of the male writers, like girls like that's not funny, and it's not like girls don't do those kinds of jokes. It's you're not funny, and what you've done is a little like Shonda Rhimes did, right?
Right.
instead of writing in the ethnicity of a character, she just wrote characters, and then it created these amazingly diverse shows.
Yeah.
And what you seem to be doing, tell me if I'm wrong, is writing comedy, and then it's not specific to women. It's just comedy in general, and then you're putting women in those roles, and then you have this poop scene in Bridesmaids that I think is the most iconic scene of all time in movie comedy, but it is hugely political to see women doing that making those kinds of jokes. So I wonder, is that intentional, or do you just, I guess you're one of those guys that just sees women as people and doesn't, make that distinction in the way that you're writing for them?
Well, yeah. I mean, I want three-dimensional people. Like you say, I hate strong female character. That's like, I have no interest in that character because that's not a real person. I don't like, I don't make superhero movies, and I don't like that kind of, not that those are not three-dimensional, but
although I would love to see a Paul Feig superhero movie.
I don't know. Would you really though?
Yeah, Wonder Woman constipated? Are you kidding me? Sign me up.
She probably was constipated.
She had
There
it.
you go.
Like, does she poop? Nobody knows. Does Wonder Woman poop?
She should poop. I mean, seeing Wonder Woman poop would make
can you
a
imagine?
feminist statement.
Can you imagine her having to stop fighting the aliens because she has to take a dump?
Yeah, I would love to see that.
I think that's a whole
I think that should be in
storyline.
your movie.
But we don't see men do that. You don't see Superman.
I think Superman should poop.
And when he does, wow, look out. No, I actually tried to. I tried to get the rights to Wonder Woman. I had meetings over there because I wanted to cast Cecily Strong as Wonder Woman.
That would have been amazing.
So funny and cool. Yeah. So, but they didn't. They immediately didn't go for it. They were already kind of deep into putting Justice League together, I think. So they were like, "Oh, we have a plan for that." So okay.
But how would you have made Wonder Woman differently? Like as a strong, messy lead.
I wanted to be like a glass ceiling movie. I thought it'd be really just interesting that Wonder Woman kind of is trying to prove herself, in this kind of male-dominated superhero world.
That's amazing.
I love that.
That would have been fun.
Hilarious.
Like the Justice League is
Well,
holding up the glass ceiling. Like she's trying to prove to Superman her worth.
Kinda, yeah. I just thought it'd be fun because I wanted to have some comedy.
Yeah,
That'd be so funny.
Yeah.
She probably did
Yeah,
feel a lot of
totally.
pressure.
I want to see
Right?
that movie. I want to see Superman having to poop out the kryptonite. That's what I want to see.
Make
I think
it.
that would be funny.
It
has
all
to
comes
pass.
back to that. I'm telling you, exactly. That's what we got to do.
There we go.
I want to thank you again for joining us, number one. Number
fun.
two, for being such a
Thanks.
iconic filmmaker and caring about these subjects. I, for so long, have worked with so many amazing people throughout my life who don't care about these things. They say they care about them, but they don't, or it doesn't reflect in their action. So when there are those that are doing in their action that has the platform such as yourself, that has the privilege such as yourself, the success, it's comforting to know that we are not alone in this, that you champion and you care about coming on a podcast, having this be a conversation that you actually have. And I know you do it in your world and in your work. So I applaud you for it. And not that you want to receive those accolades, but I think whenever we're doing good work, we should be recognized by other people that are trying to do the same work so we can have we can see eye to eye. So
Well, thank you. But I want to applaud you guys for doing. You're the next generation of filmmakers and storytellers, and it's up to you to do this. And I love that you are doing it, that you care about it so much, and that that's what we need. We need to keep. I hate the term "pay it forward," but we do have to keep paying it forward in that way. Otherwise it's not going to change. And the fear is always going to backslide, and I've seen it backslide. We go, oh, we fixed that, and then suddenly, whoa, what? Now there's a reaction against it. And so as long as it keeps moving forward, so keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh,
beautiful.
You guys are great.
Thank you, Paul. Liz has the final question for you.
All right, Paul. What does it mean for you to be man enough?
Well, I guess it means to do the right thing as much as I possibly can. I'm not always going to do the right thing, but I'm going to try to do the right thing. And I think if to be aware of it and to focus on it in the decisions that I make and make it part of my decision process, I think that's what that means to me. And to always try to do it and realize if I do fail, take away the lesson of what what was the problem and how can I fix it?
Right. Beautiful.
Being confident enough to have no confidence.
Love it.
I'm going to take that with me forever.
There you go.
And on all of my movies.
I love
Paul, you, my friend, are absolutely man enough. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please come bring Wayfarer Studios one of your movies because we want to be in business with you.
Indeed.
We'd love to make something with you.
I would love that. Absolutely love it. That would be great. You guys are fantastic, and thank you for everything.
And to all of our listeners, as always, you can like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or follow us at
manenough.com/podcast.
I am Justin Baldoni.
I'm Liz Plank.
You didn't want to go?
We have a
I
delay.
don't want to go.
We have a
because
delay.
I just think there's more power in Liz going last. I feel like it's like we're the two men propping her up, and she's like
yes,
hitting it
there
out
is
the
power in
park.
that, but also
finale.
we're also trying to not let the women go last anymore. So maybe it should really be Liz, me, then you.
Okay.
I would love Liz. I would love Liz to go first.
All right. I'm going first. I'm Liz Plank.
I'm Jamie Heath.
And I'm Justin. Now I feel.
No, you're last.
Now I feel okay. All right. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you
This
next time.
Is Man Enough.